Hey, everybody, Jim Cummings here. And if Tigger were here, he'd say, thanks, everybody, for bouncing on in here and enjoying the show. But before we go, I want you to do me a small favor. Hit like, subscribe, and give us a thumbs up if you're enjoying the show. Now, speaking of enjoying the show, enjoy the show.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Toon'd In with Jim Cummings. Today, we're sitting down with Ben Prendegast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here.
Jim, how are you doing today?
Thank you. Superb. It's another day in paradise, and I'm so glad to see you here, Ben.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, big fan of you guys.
Yeah.
You've been doing it a little while now.
Now, for the audience who doesn't know, you've been part of some of the biggest video game franchises of all time. I mean, God of War, Call of Duty, Diablo, Fallout. I mean, these titles are just legendary.
Those are Apex Legends.
Apex
is probably
Legends.
the one that I get recognized most for. But yeah, I've had a series of lucky breaks, which is what a career is, right?
Yeah. So true.
Yeah, but you know, it's I've been out here since 2017, so I'm originally from Melbourne.
Oh, yeah?
And,
that explains this Australian accent,
This weird
mister.
Australian accent.
I see where you're going with this.
Imagine if I was actually from like Burbank or something and I developed this great Aussie accent. And, I've been accused of worse.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you. But what were we talking about? When I first came out, I was trying to find good rep. And I'd done a bit of commercial voiceover stuff in Melbourne. And I come out here and I read for this agent and they give me a bunch of scripts. They give me, something from Disney, something just spec stuff. And so I do the read. And I'd come from like theater and film and hadn't done a lot of animation at this stage or video games. And I'm like, I thought it was good. I'm like, here we go. Here's a really truthful read of this character. And and this agent who will remain nameless, he's like, yeah, but Ben, if they wanted to hire someone who was truthful, they'd hire someone much more famous than you to just speak the lines. You're going to need to do more than speak the lines. I'm like, okay. All right. So you want more like this?
Yeah. Hey, let's get that arrow out of your neck.
So that was my intro to intro. That he signed me, so I guess, it worked out in the end. But,
Yeah, well, joke's on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you want to get him some coffee now? That's the guy, but that's the old Tony Curtis joke, right?
And you're still with that same guy?
I'm not, but we did a lot of work together. I still call him a friend. But life moves on.
So what was your growing up? Were you a theater kid growing up?
No,
man. Running around?
I played a lot of football.
You were a little rabble-rouser?
I grew up in the kind of country Victoria, a place called Sunbury, which is where there was like a rock festival, very famous rock festival that, Queen played at in 77 or something. Anyway, I grew up there. My school was like agricultural kids, and you had to play sport, and there was a theater department, but I was never part of it. But I played music. That was my thing. I had buddies, we'd get together and we'd like play music.
What's your instrument?
I'm a guitarist and a singer and a songwriter. Yeah. So I did a lot of that, through teens, into my 20s, and even sort of into my 30s. And I found acting in my 20s. But it was funny, like country Victoria, man, in the 80s and 90s, you had to play sport, and the idea of, as much as I wanted to get into theater, because that was my dream, to be an actor from a very young age.
Oh, yeah. When did you get that bug?
I remember, this is a Canadian reference of all things. There was a show called You Can't Do That on Television.
Oh, yes.
It was a crazy kids show, right? I heard that. Biff was this guy.
Yes.
And I remember I used to have these recurring dreams as a 7 or an 8-year-old that I was on that show. And of course, I couldn't remember my lines, that classic actor.
Oh, man.
You had making stuff
You
up.
had the horror. You had the nightmare first.
I had the nightmare before I had the dream of being an actor.
And then the other one, but at least you were clothed.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Because isn't that the other one? You were on stage, you appear on stage and you're naked.
That's right, yeah.
So that's good.
I've had that one a bunch. I've had a bunch. I mean, that's a recurring. I'm one of those people that has a bunch of recurring nightmares.
I do too.
And recurring, like, empowered dreams, like where I can fly or where I have, like, telekinesis or whatever. I'm one of those guys. But the nightmare I have often, I don't know about you, I had this old woman and, like, I walk into this, usually an older house, and then I'm just like, oh, she's here, isn't she? And I look up and there's either an old woman or a young kid and they just like appear and they're a ghost and they just like come at me, kind of like in Ghostbusters, the
perfect.
That's my recurring nightmare.
Mine's always, I have a theater show and for some reason, like I haven't rehearsed once and it's opening night and I'm like, oh my, I don't know a single line. Like, I don't even know where to start this show, and I hate that anxiety feeling and like getting on stage. But then it always ends before the play starts.
Yeah,
like I never
the
have
dream ends.
Yeah,
you're trying to save yourself from that trauma. That's why. Yeah. I've had the real life nightmare of like being on stage and like
and forgetting your lines.
Bunch of times.
That's me too. I was in a million plays as a kid, and because I'm known for ad-libbing a lot, I'll always give them the line as written, but then I'll ad-lib this, that, or the other thing. And I think it's just because I couldn't remember the line.
Yeah.
So I had to, I know I was pissed off about something. Well, yeah, well, I'll tell you what. And then I'd turn out some ridiculous version of what the line might have been. And of course, as a child, kids coming up, they're going, that wasn't your line.
Yeah.
I can't say my line now. Yes, you can't say your line, you clown. So yeah.
Apparently Pacino has iambic pentameter, like a fake Shakespeare speech in his back pocket. A lot of Shakespeare actors do, I know this. And you dry on the line. And so then, what's come here? My cousin Westmoreland, no, my fair cousin. Like he'll just break it and then he'll remember where he was. For me, I'll always try and go back. Like I'll say a line and I'll dry. And it's only happened a couple of times in my career, but terrifying. And I'll go back on the previous line.
Yeah.
You're tired. You're doing like 7 or 8 shows a week. And in this one night, I was doing, I played Ostrov in Chekhov, right? Uncle Vanya. And there was one line, and I dried in front of the actress playing Yelena, and I was like, looking at her, I'm like, she's not saving me. I don't know what to do here. So I just go back and I repeat the previous line. Normally that gets me out, right? I'm like, it's inside out.
I guess what I meant to say was.
I repeat the previous line. Still nothing. And I'm just like, what do I do? And I'm sure it was only seconds, but in my heart it was like hours. And then eventually, I don't know how I got back in, but maybe skipped a page or something. But
I saw that happen one time. It was at an audition, and for some reason we all watched each other audition. This is years ago.
Okay.
And for some reason we all auditioned in front of each other, like in one big room.
Yeah.
The casting directors were there, and then they would call people up one at a time.
Everybody loves that.
Yeah, and it's weird. I think that's one of the few times I've actually been in the room with other people. Anyway. And so this guy gets up there and he does the repeating line thing, but he just keeps repeating it, like hoping. And it's like, no, I won't do that. No, I won't do that. No, I won't do that. And he just kept saying that over and over and over. And we're just sitting there like, we know what he's going for, but it's just not coming up.
Yet you are doing that. You are. It's that's painful.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is like horror theater stories, and I do have a bunch. But there was one famous actor in Melbourne, and he'd come from TV, and it was a bit of a stunt cast to bring him into this Shakespeare production, main stage, 1,000 people watching, whatever. Anyway, so he drives on this line, and you could tell it was really painful and watching him. And he eventually, we call it in the industry that he just started winding the windows down. He's just like trying to remember the line like this. And eventually he just turns to the actress next to him and he goes, help me, like this. I'm like, no. This is Shakespeare, buddy. You can't just come out with, help me.
Ooh, helpeth me.
Yeah,
helpeth me.
Yeah.
Thou doth not helpeth.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Horror stories.
Yeah, that'd be enough to lay it down for me.
Yeah.
That anxiety is what makes me remember lines.
Right?
Like,
yeah.
I'm like, oh man, like there's no way I'm not going to remember this.
Yeah.
Like there's no way.
But I also love if I'm in a show or if I'm watching a show, everything comes alive when someone makes that mistake. Like if the audience, even if they don't know 100% that a line's been dropped, if it's a new play or whatever, you can just tell there's a little frisson, like a little energy comes up, and all the
that is
you'll
true.
see. You just watch the other actors, like someone drops the line, and everyone sort of goes,
Trying to.
Okay, here we go. And same thing. Like I one of the other times I can recall, there was a play by a great New York playwright Annie Baker called The Flick. It won the Pulitzer in 2015, and we put it up in Melbourne, and I played one of the characters in that. And he comes back on after the interval, and he has this like half an hour monologue, and it's to the other guy. Avery is the other character's name, and so I'm with this other character, and I come out for my big monologue, and I used to because I have like 20 minutes between the last scene in that first part of the play and the second play, I'd actually nap. Like I could get a sleep in because it was tiring. Wow. It was a 3-hour play. I was exhausted at the end of the run. I was doing other things.
3-hour play.
And so I'd have this nap, and I'd get up, and this one night I'd get up to go on stage, and I'm like, oh, I'm still kind of a little bit sleepy. So I'd go out to do this monologue, and I'd dry on the first line. And the line was like, so anyway, the next day we all go to the movies, right? That was the line. And I had nothing afterwards. And I look across at Kev, he was playing Avery, and I'm Kev. And afterwards he's like, I can't help you. I couldn't help you. What am I going to say? Like, it's your story. You've come back from like this time away from me. I don't know anything about what you're going to say. And so I was like, and my mom was there and my dad was there. I just started saying random stuff. And eventually we find our way back on the bike. But yeah.
See, that's painful.
But both of us were like, all right, it's on now. We don't know what's going to happen here.
It's weird how theater shows can get so routine. You know, like when I've done theater shows, it's almost like by the second, third weekend, it's like I'm not even thinking about this. Like I'm not even really present. Like I'm just like, it's so in me. You know, it's like you said, it's that when something's different all of a sudden, then everybody kind of perks up and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we're doing this.
Which is kind of my the main regret or like frustration I have with on camera or and even like animation or stuff where you're getting the page on the day or in the minute or you're, you know, even if you're ad-libbing, is that you kind of miss out on that playtime that you get in rehearsal with other actors responding truthfully, trying to find what a thing is. That's something that I've really had to work hard on building in, that imaginary like other person or the given circumstances to really kind of have the bravery to launch into something that's kind of emotionally heightened even, or even if it's just super truthful, or even if it's just not like the standard read. You know, I've really had to work hard on that, and that's something I do miss from, you know,
and I bet, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're doing a video game or one of the items out there that are out there now, you're all alone. Correct? I mean,
for something like God of War, it's great because you are all in PCAP costumes. I am responding, you know, working with Chris.
I see.
You know, I worked a lot with Chris.
Yeah.
And it was some of the more beautiful moments I've had on stage or in a volume with someone. But certainly, say with Fuse from Apex Legends, it's a bunch of lines. You know, there's 4,500 lines for that guy. And every season there's a new set of lines.
And you were off book, right?
Well, so for some of the lines, you know, you go to these conventions and everyone's like, you know that line you do, and you're like, nope.
Oh, yeah, I've gotten that.
Remind me? Yeah, that one?
Yeah, do the line.
Yeah. But certainly for performance capture, which I love, which is one of my favorite things about some of those AAA games, is it's much closer to theater, even more so than film. Because, you know, you're running from start to finish with a scene. You're not able to turn it around and pick it up. There is no turnaround. And it is emotionally heightened, especially if it's a Norse or a Greek tragedy, which is what God of War kind of is. Yeah, you know, there are big moments of
true, isn't it?
Issues between fathers and sons, issues between, you know, gods, like immortality. How do you wade through all that? I think with God of War in particular, that's why I think Chris and I get along, as we share a lot of that history as fathers as well, you know. So but I do love that about the performance capture side of things for sure. But yeah, definitely, you know, animation, especially the big ones. Like I did a Star Wars years ago, Star Wars Resistance, and it was actually, so my story is I came in, I had that rep that I talked about. I auditioned maybe 500 or 600 times before I landed anything that I liked, you know, anything of a name, you know. And it was Star Wars. I fell off my chair when he called me about it. It was a day.
That's not bad.
It's not bad.
That's not a bad start.
So I walk in, like voice matching General Hux. So I'm voice matching, and I walk it for Donald Gleason. And I walk in, and it's Bobby Moynihan, D. Bradley Baker, a bunch of other people who I really respect. And I walk in, and they're like, "Yeah, man, welcome." And like they had a bunch of, it was before COVID, so they had a bunch of like screens around the room, and we just played. But play in that sense around amongst those people when you're like green is like, they're the lines, don't step outside of those lines, make them impactful and go to work. Whereas these days, you know, I'm much more interested in kind of like vibing with everyone and trying to get the best result for the production.
Yeah. Plus it's nice after COVID to finally get back in the studio and have an opportunity to be with other people. Because boy, I'm sure you're the same. It really helps. I mean, you know, acting is reacting.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I know for Apex, for instance, there was a scene where for the first time in, I wouldn't say video game history, but certainly, I mean, maybe, but in that history of that lore, there was two characters, one a pansexual character, the other one non-binary, who were expressing their love for each other, right? So it was right. And the actress who was playing one of the other characters had COVID, but we needed to have this like heart-to-heart scene, and so she's on, she's in the other mic in her own
How'd
studio.
How'd they do that? Oh, you're in studio? Yeah.
I was in at Warner Brothers. She was at home, but they had a screen as close as they could get. And so it's not ideal. I'd much rather be breathing the same air as that person. It's going to make a difference.
I mean, even as something like minor, I'm not going to say minor, but in terms of like production, even on the podcast, it always doesn't seem as coherent when we do it on Zoom, over a screen. It just doesn't. I don't know. There's just something about being in person.
Oh God,
yeah.
My daughter Raleigh West is her stage name. She's a really, really great actress, and right at the beginning of COVID, they were getting ready to launch this really cool play. And they thought, oh, now we can't do it, but we have to do it. We just spent all this time, all this money. So they did it on one of those screens, and it was like the beginning of the Brady Bunch. Boom, 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 boom. And they're handing things to each other. Well, here's this cup of water. And then you can see that the arm goes out and it looks like this. Then a hand comes in and it's got a winter coat on, and it's just it was.
I did painful. One of those. We did like a radio play in the pandemic, and that was actually really fun because it was more like the audio.
That's
like
not
it was.
bad.
We did it on Zoom, but it was meant to be listened to. You weren't meant to be watching it, so it was almost like acting out like a novel or something. It was really cool. Did it with a couple of the actors from God of War.
All right.
Yeah.
Adam, Alistair.
Adam and oh no, I'm forgetting her name. Danielle.
Yeah. The city. Yeah.
Yeah. Adam. And, she is so talented, dude.
Yeah, we love Danielle. Our
she
Freya.
Is so talented.
Yeah. She's great.
Man, she had like this scene where she had to like break down, like hysterically cry, and man, like watching her face like transform. It was just like, man, like I don't know what you're dealing with.
She has a deep well. She has a deep well. She's like, what am I going to pull out today? Like the La Brea tar pits. There's every 80 million years, there's still something else that comes up. But that's kind of why I don't know if you guys saw recently, and Ben Affleck came out talking about AI, and I was thinking a lot about that recently, as we all are. And so this idea of AI replacing a bunch of things, and I have a really optimistic viewpoint of it. Which is like, it's gonna create a whole bunch of new content in the same way that like 3D film did for a minute, in the same way that 3D TVs came out for a minute. But and because it's such a derivation of everything that's come before it, what it can never do, and I'm steadfast on this, is replace the taste of a real human in the current situation we find ourselves, right? So right now, if you ask any AI to do anything, to talk about politics, it can't talk about the last week and a half. It can't talk about the future hopes and dreams of a country. It just can't do it. It certainly can't react to how I'm sitting opposite you, how what's happening in the room, what cameras are on us, like whatever. It certainly can't ignore any of that stuff.
The way I see it, I totally agree, and I think it's because AI operates in a world of written rules, whereas we operate in a world of unwritten rules. Most rules that humans adhere to are actually unwritten. Even something as simple as like the speed limit, like a lot of people, it's unwritten, but allow leeway around the speed limit. It's like, I can probably go 70 here in a 65. The way you greet people, how we're seeing, Roger, those informalities, those are all unwritten rules. It'd be really rude to just walk by and start the podcast. It's an unwritten rule of like, being cordial. And I think that's, to your point, why AI can't really replace a human, because it lives in a world of written rules. It doesn't know how to. All it knows is instructions, And
I think the sort of greater problem is that the money's going to follow it where it thinks it can cut 20% of the cost. And so I think there's a reckoning, a bit of pain to go through, but certainly a reckoning from the studios, from the people who are producing things, that when they start producing this stuff with this seeming, artificial taste and artificial choices, we all can stand in a studio and deliver a line 10 different times, and one of them, and 2 or 3 of them are usable, but one of them is going to like pop out, and it's not 100% going to just come from the writer's brain or just come from the director. It's never the way. Like, why wouldn't we collaborate? As a species, we've made the most gains when we've had 2 or 3 people nutting out a problem. And so I think the money's going to make some mistakes, and then they're going to have to come back. But for now, I think we have a little bit of pain to get through.
Yeah. Well, I always say I'll do one as written, and then I'll do it as it should be.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I love that.
They love that. Yeah, the writers love that, you know. But then again, if it works, they go, that's I wrote that.
Yeah, I read that. I read that.
Yeah, you like that? Oh, me too. Oh, shucks.
Yeah.
Tweren't nothing. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it's so true.
The other thing that I was sort of fond of saying early on when AI was when they were just starting to release it like last year, because everything's moved so quickly, right? Is that AI doesn't pay tax. So at some point you've got litigation. At some point you've got like governments coming in and mandating certain things.
Never thought of that one.
Well, what do you want to do? Just send all of that money directly to a business and have that business pay less tax than the individual? No, you want the individual to make enough money and then pay tax, And so I think governments, it's around the world, not just America, but governments will come. And I think some of them have started to. I know out of Australia, there's been some pretty solid laws against Replacement Act. I know there's the Fake Act here. I know the unions are trying to do their thing here. But certainly in video games, it's less of a power base than it was in film and TV. So,
Yeah.
It's a crystal ball, but like my take on it is I remain optimistic that I like working with other humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, no kidding.
I just think AI has overstated how smart it really is, too.
Yeah.
Because I was, I'm working on this cartoon project. And so I was seeing, can AI animate cartoon frames? So much of animation is just tedious filler frames. It can't even do that. Like, you can't even say, like, make like a 90s cartoon character, walk into it can't do 2D animation. Like,
I like also if I plug in, say I write as well, so I'll plug in a treatment for a script, but I'll leave out the ending, right? The ending that I wrote. And I'll be like, hey, ChatGTP, come back with 10 endings that are different to anything that's ever been. And it doesn't. It comes back to the 10 most derivative, most popular. It's like, it's a unlimited monkeys on a typewriter coming out with Shakespeare.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Oh.
Well, you've heard that before, where there's only like 7 stories, right? That old. You've heard that too. Like when you really boil it down, it's like a hero goes on a journey. Returns home, or the basic tropes.
It's just the context that changes.
Apparently he was betrayed.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah, it's a revenge story. It's a coming of age story. It's whatever. You can boil it down to anything.
Yeah.
So what got you? You said you always wanted to be an actor, but you didn't start really doing it until your 20s. Why is that?
Self-belief, lack of.
Interesting.
Interesting. Probably a lot to do with just the parent, like my parents and the family that I came out of. Pretty working class. If anything, they had played music. They'd played in like garage bands. My dad likes to say that he lost in the battle of the bands to AC/DC.
Oh wow!
And I was like, okay, well that's my dad's.
You can handle that.
Yeah, that's fine. You guys go on, do your thing.
Yeah.
But certainly, having just never thought that I was allowed to do it until I was in my 20s. I had a career as a software entrepreneur.
Really?
Yeah, I had a software business in Australia and in Silicon Valley.
No kidding.
It fell by the wayside.
You kind of look like a tech bro now.
I could be a tech bro. Yeah. Send me the money, tech bro. I'll still do it. And even in Melbourne when I was doing theatre, I'd be moonlighting in theatre, putting a show up at night, and then I'd be working as like a digital producer in digital agency land.
Kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I would go to work. I would take a coffee break at 10:30, and I'd walk across the road to the radio station and do like a bit. And then I'd come back, I'd have lunch, I'd go out, I'd put down an audition in the car park.
Get out.
Then I'd go and do Uncle Vanya at night down the road.
Whoa.
Wow.
And I remember there was one, and bless him, I would do my work, but
You're a pretty good juggler.
Yeah. I call myself a polymath on LinkedIn because I just didn't know what else to call myself. That's overstating what my capabilities are. But that's where I came from in my 20s. So
that's great.
So then I would go and take acting classes and go and seek out the best acting coaches and read everything that I could. And it wasn't until I started getting cast in short films and picking up small roles in TV, guest roles in TV, and then also doing some commercial voiceover stuff in Melbourne that I was like, I was building an income that made sense to actually split my time. And then I was lucky enough to join a theatre company in Melbourne, quite a prestigious black box theatre company called Red Stitch. And the beauty of that, it's a bit like Steppenwolf in Chicago, where the actors, the ensemble, were able to choose the plays that they would put on. So we'd put on 8 plays a year.
That's cool.
We'd be reading 50 or 60 plays, and they were all the contemporary, some classics, contemporary plays from the US and the UK. And so we'd have access to all this great writing. We'd also be able to cast ourselves in the leads, which we weren't really able to do, or I wasn't able to book in Australia because I'd come to it a bit late. And so what would happen is you would hire the actor who was my age, who would have a ton of credits because you'd mitigate all that risk. And therefore, it'd be more bankable for them. And it makes perfect sense. Whereas here it works a little differently. You want a fresh face. You want someone with a new take. So America was very attractive to me, but it wasn't until literally I was flipping houses and I sold a house, made some good money. And I was like, all right, I'm going to take this little nest egg and go and move to America. So I moved to America in 2017.
Oh, nice.
I had a bunch of credits in Australia, a bunch of stage credits. Felt like I'd been to my drama school on stage, had bled on that stage. So when I came out here, I felt pretty confident.
Sorry to interrupt. I've always said I think that's why you see so many Aussie and British, actors getting cast over here. And I think a big reason for that is because you guys are all theater trained. Like you guys are all theater trained before you come over here. And American actors, American Canadian actors, they kind of just go for the camera first. They don't really, they don't really learn that like.
There's a truth to that. I think the other thing is that we're immersed from birth in American centric culture.
Oh, that's why you guys can all do the accent.
That's why we can do the accent. Yeah. It's why we understand the characters. And also it's such a small population over there that if you don't do the voiceover, commercial voiceover, if you don't do theater, if you don't take ads, if you don't do film and TV, if you don't diversify in that way, you're toast. And so, when we come over, that's my instinct is when I come over, is just like do everything and anything. And so that's what I did.
Yeah.
Like when I landed here, I was doing
hit the ground running.
Theater reads. Like I thought I was going to break into theater in LA. Like that's how dumb is that? How dumb is that? Like I just was barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah.
It's I think that's why Australians they're pragmatic. You die on the vine if you're not. So yeah. And I'd done a lot of American and British based plays. So now when I come to an American read or a British read, I feel super comfortable. I'm not thinking so much about the accent. I'm thinking more about the story and about what the intent is on the line.
Well, that's good. Yeah. I always say instincts are the best stinks, right?
I'd love that.
If it works in your head, then get it out of your head.
Yeah. I mean, I struggled with that for a very long time. Especially with the American sense of humor. It's slightly different to the British sense of humor. Canadians get it.
Oh, yeah.
And Americans, I think now have come to get more of the British humor. You've had your Ricky Gervaises and you're like, there's always a
Monty
difference.
Python.
Python, Faulty Towers, there's an acerbic quality to the British.
It's very droll, very witty.
Yeah.
Very dry. I love it.
And Australians have that, but then there's also this 200 years of being a convict and being a bit of a ragamuffin, a little bit of come on,
That's
and
right.
we take the piss out of each other, we like to rib each other.
Right.
Which is, probably why me and your dad get on so but, I think that I really struggled with that. And I was like, all right, well, what am I going to do? So, I would just watch a ton of SNL, which isn't the funniest thing on the planet, but it gives you an inkling into an American sense of humor.
Yeah, that's actually a probably good idea.
Yeah, so my instincts are better now, they're sharper now, but back in the day I was like, I know why I was missing out on especially comedic things. Yeah.
Well, I love British humor.
Yeah.
We just had occasion, we were over in England, we went and saw Faulty Towers, the play.
Oh, wow.
And the guy who played John Cleese was crazy brilliant. I mean, he looked so much like him.
Yeah.
It was really something to say, I'm keen to guess.
Yeah.
I just love it. I'm an old Python guy.
Yeah.
So, beautiful.
Python permeates my, there's a lot that comes, especially when someone complains about something. It's like, if we were lucky, we do the sketch on when I went to bed, I'd be strapped before I went to bed, and then I'd wake up 4 hours before I went to bed.
Look, shut it.
Look, shut it.
Yeah.
So you just finished a movie filming with Julia Garner, correct?
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah.
Is that Wolfman?
It's Wolfman, yeah.
That's Wolfman?
So part of my background in theater and moving into performance capture as well is that I do a lot of creature work. And Wolfman is directed by Leigh Whannell, who last year did The Invisible Man. Universal have trusted him with some of their big like flagpole monster films.
Which was such a great movie.
It was really good. Yeah,
I liked that movie so much. I'm sorry, just a little tangent. I liked that movie so much. I saw it opening night. And I was dating this girl at the time, my ex, and we looked at each other. The credits rolled. We said, we're going back. And we literally, the only time in my life I've ever walked out of the theater, got another ticket, and watched that movie back to back. Yeah. I loved that movie.
And Leigh, to me, Leigh is like Australia's Tarantino. And the reason I say that, and it's quite funny, because Leigh, the director came up on a show called Recovery on ABC, Australia's ABC, and he would talk about films. And so he'd turn on all these kids, we were at the same age, turn all these kids onto like the film directors coming through. So whether it was Rodriguez or Tarantino or whoever's coming through, he'd be teaching us kids to go and watch it. So he's a huge fan. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of film. He later with James Wan came out with like the Saw series. So like he came out, did Saw, did Insidious, did a bunch of like, so he understands horror like intimately.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And so then when he comes to The Invisible Man, before that he did another one called Upgrade. Have you seen Upgrade?
Yep.
It's already
Yeah.
So he gets Wolfman. Now I'd had dinner with Leigh years ago through mutual friends, and I really dug his vibe. And so, you know, talking about like, we were talking before we rolled camera on auditions. Here was this audition, came really late in the piece. It was like December of last year. And it was like, all right, you're a creature that's dying. And then you come to this realization and you're like a little more human, right? That was the brief for the audition. I'm like,
wow.
How, I mean, I hate like miming in an audition.
Ooh.
So all I did, I remember I knew it was Leigh directing, so I got, you know, the band, there's an Australian band called Little River Band. They're more an American band now. So they have a song called Hey Everybody, yeah. I'm like, I had this old turntable. I put the record on because I knew it was going to be in that kind of aesthetic. So I put this record on in the back of my audition and I just jump into it. I'm just like dying as this like animal, like wolfman character. I did 2 takes. I sent it off. I forget about it. I'm like, I'm never booking this. You know, it's a big creature role. I have stunt stuff in my background. I've done a lot of stunt work.
Oh, yeah.
And then another series of lucky breaks. I remember, I think it was like December or January. I can't remember what it was, but I get this call back. I go into Hollywood. There's a bunch of other people who look like me and are as tall as me and look pretty strapping, some bigger, some smaller. And it's Leigh, and I'm like, oh, this is the callback. I always do well in front of a director in a callback. Like, it kills me that I want to get in front of the director for the callback because I know I do well. I know I lift it up a bit.
Oh, that's good to know.
And yeah, and also the director's there. You read their energy. When they're giving you a note, you're translating in your head. You know what they actually want.
Yeah, and if they all of a sudden they lean forward or something.
Yeah, exactly. Or they're a little more interested in the choice. Yeah, I like what you did there, but like, what if it was just this? And I'm like, the way you said that means you want not just this, but you also want this. So it was probably one of the easiest processes. Nice. And so the next thing you know, like I'm cast in this, what can I say about Wolfman? Look, you know the story. It's a family. They are going out to, it's set in Oregon. And they're being hunted by a creature. It's Christopher Abbott, who I love. He's been in a ton of stuff. Julia Garner, who I love from Ozark, and a bunch of other.
What a talent! What a talent she is.
You know,
she really is.
Her and Chris. So you know, most of my scenes are with Julia and the girl, and her name is Matilda. Also, an incredible talent. She's from Leeds, this young girl, and she plays the American, daughter of theirs. Incredibly talented. But with Julia, it's like, she's focused all the way up to action. And then when action's called, she is like next level focused. And so not to reveal too much about what I'm doing in the film, but like, she's terrified. And I'm doing what I'm doing in that. It's, I'm doing my best to petrify this family. And she's just there every single take. And, for me, it was like one of the hardest physically challenging roles I've ever done. And what I remember coming away with having watched the split after like take after take after take is like, oh, this is not just a thriller. This is not just a horror film. This is a fantastic auteur's take on Universal's Wolfman. And so I see all the internet out there. I see what they're talking, like what they think the film's about, because the trailer's out there. You can derive what you want from the trailer. But I think they're going to see something really, another fantastic film out of Leigh. I know I know he works hard, and I know he's still working on this thing being great. But Stefan Duccio, the DP, the makeup artists from that film, and the special effects artists, the same guys from like Pan's Labyrinth, the guy with the eyeballs on the hands. They just came off Ghostbusters. Like Lee got to play with a budget, a decent budget for an indie film, indie sort of art house film. It's Blumhouse. We love Blumhouse and Universal.
Blumhouse is great.
And so we're going to see 17th of January. We're going to see what it is.
So is this, I know a few years ago, Universal was talking about like unrolling, their revamped monster movies. So does this fall into that
is in
technically?
That universe. Yeah.
So but then they kind of slashed the plans like officially, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if they've slashed the plans because I know
because it was like Invisible Man.
Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah.
Invisible Man.
What was the one that Jordan Peele did?
Frankenstein.
Jordan Peele did Candyman.
Oh,
the remake of Candyman. He just did.
He did?
Yeah, he just did Jordan Peele directed the remake of Candyman.
Okay, I didn't see that, but I know
that was like 2-3 years ago.
Frankenstein, Jekyll and Hyde, like Universal is sitting on there like babies.
For sure.
I know for this, it's quite funny because I'd followed the Wolfman in the development, and it was like The Rock was going to play Wolfman, and then it was like Ryan Gosling had the rights on it, and so Ryan was going to play the Wolfman.
I hope The Rock didn't get it. Good for him,
The
mind
Rock,
you.
he's busy with Moana too. He's going to be fine.
yeah, we're not worried about him, but I don't see him as a Wolfman.
Yeah.
No, I mean it'd be terrifying. Like
Yes.
it'd be comical.
If Dwayne's coming at you extra hairy, like he hasn't been that hairy maybe ever, right?
Like period. Yeah.
I love him. But yeah. So so I know that Ryan was involved with Villeneuve, and that script changed. And then I think during the pandemic, Lee and Corbett Tuck, his writing partner, they rewrote this under the guise of, what if this was more a body horror, kind of like, Werewolf in London or like The Fly or something like that. That's what we can look forward to.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Werewolf in London
I'm excited
is my
to see
favorite
your
movie.
performance.
One of them.
Yeah, well, I came to this. I did 6 weeks of stunt training. I was already fit coming into this, but I did 6 weeks.
No kidding.
I'm 48 years old, and I'm like, I know I'm going to ask my body to be 28 on this thing. And I was like, worried. I was super worried.
Oh, man.
But we got through it. Fantastic stunt crew. Steve McQuinlan, who's the stunt coordinator. Byron Henry, who's my other stunt partner in this. And he's like an ex Olympic gymnast. So you're going to see some stuff in this. Wow. There's a lot to look forward to for Wolfman, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Cool. Excited for that.
Yeah, I love a good horror movie. I'm just total, black and white horror movies. It's just amazing.
And speaking of Jordan Peele, like some of my favorite Us and like Get Out.
Did you see the posters just out here?
No,
they have like the old Frankenstein poster.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about this.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see The Mummy.
Yeah. It's gonna. I think. I was listening to something recently, and it was like, for 40, 50 years, the Western was like accounted for like something like 2/3 of every Hollywood film. All right, crazy. And then it died, and like we came into the 80s with like Tombstone and Dances with Wolves, and like, and then one of them sort of died. I can't remember which one sort of killed the Western. And then more recently, they tried Cowboys and Aliens, and that died. And so, but horror films have kind of been a mainstay. But what I feel like what we're seeing with your Jordan Peels, with your Lee Winnells, with some of these auteur indie filmmakers, because all of these tentpole films are out there with their $200, $300 million budgets, what's left is this sort of $40 to $60 to $80 million budget, and the sort of the crazy kind of human story you can tell is the kind of the thriller. It's the horror film. It's the surprise, like your Invisible Man, where you're like, man, what is Invisible Man's great. It's like a retelling of that.
Yeah.
But you also get the benefit of like modern special effects and modern it can be so eerie. Yeah.
To me, it feels like horror is going through right now kind of what superhero genre went through back in like the early 2000s, late 2000s, I should say, with like, I'm referring to like The Dark Knight and how these superhero movies started to become more almost like grounded in reality. Like instead of like this big, like underwear over the
they
suit.
They got desaturated. It was graded to be more dark.
Exactly.
You had Heath Ledger's Joker. You had
and you had politics. Like you had the political side of dealing with a superhero and things like that. And then now I feel like it's kind of swung back away from that. It's kind of more like like 70s, 80s superheroes again, where they're just like all powerful. And, you know, here we go. Captain Marvel comes in and lasers everybody with her eyes. And, you know, why didn't she do that in the first place? You know, like,
right. How'd you let it go so far?
Yeah.
Which is where I feel what's really interesting with the video game world is you have these huge audiences. And so the politics and those life lessons are coming through in the video games
for sure,
and the animation, like manga, anime, whatever it is. That's what our kind of kids and our teens and even our young adults and older, like even I enjoy that right now. Is like that's where we're taking our life lessons from, and the politics are coming out of that. And,
for sure.
And one way, left or right, by the way, you know, there's extremely left leaning like video games, extremely right, and some people are critical of that. And I get it, but like that's how the kids are cutting their teeth on politics,
for sure,
which is kind of interesting.
I remember when Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, I was in college, and I think I think Grand Theft Auto 5 is one of the best satirical pieces of medium of any medium.
No kidding.
Like the satire in that game, like they hit American culture on the head.
Wow.
And they take the satire and crank it up to 1,000.
Know that.
And it's just like everything from you know, like celebrityism, capitalism.
It's a real mirror. It's
military,
a real mirror up
you
to
know,
American
government.
society.
For sure. The FBI, the CIA spying on people, you know, skirting around laws, you know, like self-serving, crazy people. You know, it's just a satire of it all. And it feels like it's just like satirized America. And then boom, you know, you have Franklin as the, you know, the black character from the hood who comments on, you know, social class structures, and you know all the main characters are just looking out for themselves, and then you know you have Michael, the retired bank heister, you know, who's trying to live his glory days in misery, you know, just drinking away his pain and thinking about the days he used to be. And then you have Trevor, you know, the freaking crazed lunatic bank robber, you know, who's just all out. You have like kind of everything for every kind of gamer, and I thought that was such a smart decision by them. Sorry, I'm on a tangent.
I love that. I love that wish fulfillment. And GTA 5 did it. And the other game that came...
That's good observation.
Same developer is Red Dead Redemption. Like during the pandemic. And I've said this to, I forget the guy's name, not Roger, got Roger on the brain, who plays the lead character in that.
Roger.
It is Roger.
Roger. Not this Roger.
Not Roger.
Yeah,
Craig
but
Smith.
Roger.
It is Roger. Because we hung out and I said, listen, man, during the pandemic...
Wait, isn't his name Roger Craig?
Roger Craig, yeah. Oh, man, this is going to kill me.
This is gonna kill me.
But anyway, that...
Good old Roger.
Love you, Roger. During the pandemic, I was my kid, like I have two older boys. They were 18 and 20 at the time. And I was over here at the time. I couldn't get back. And so we would overnight play Red Dead Redemption online together.
Roger Clark.
Roger Clark.
Sorry, Roger.
Roger Clark. Roger's a lovely guy. I love Roger. We had a good time. We were in San Diego. And I told this to his face. I was like, man, that character really like kept me solid with my family. Like literally playing Red Dead Redemption during the pandemic to get through, sitting around a fictitious campfire, talking to my sons before we go off and we like hold up a bank.
Well, you know,
you're all right.
Everyone's got to have a hobby.
Oh boy, that's the wrong one. That's your dad. Boy, no, come on, boy. Yeah, my boy.
You're all right, girl.
Yeah. Jim, you would pat your horse, and then your horse would become more enamored towards you, so it would like have more stamina because you pat your. There's my girl. Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and you'd pat your. Yeah, there's a button to pat your horse.
Oh my God. Oh, that's wild.
Yeah. So video games have a huge impact on our kids.
How old are your kids?
So I have three kids. I have a 20-year-old, a 22-year-old who is still in Australia, and my daughter is 3.5 years old.
Oh,
She's
wow.
out here, yeah.
Oh, nice little spread there.
So yeah, I feel like a grandparent to her sometimes. But, so I get to see the boys. I'll either come out here or I'll go out to them, 2 or 3 times a year. I try.
Nice.
They're doing the thing. One's in cybersecurity. The other was training to be a psychologist, but now he's like in the tech industry himself. So, and the thing is, I had done a bunch of films, a bunch of TV. They'd see me on stage, but when I booked Apex Legends, they were just like, Dad, you don't understand. No, it's Dad. You're going to be a legend. You're going to be an Apex legend. I was like, all right, whatever. Like,
okay,
and then,
sure.
And when that dropped, like, I never knew that when something like that happens, and I'm sure it's happened to all of us, that I was on Twitter at the time, and my phone, when my character launched, my phone just started blowing up. Like blowing ding, 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 ding. And Twitter will pop up with a message saying, are you okay? do you want to turn this off? Are you okay? And I was like, wait, I'm like one of the chosen ones. So I was like, yes, Twitter, I don't want 10,000 dings a minute. Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm fine. Thank you. Get out of my way.
Thank you, Twitter. I don't know if Musk sends the same message, but you know.
That's wow.
Yeah, that's great. That was a wild time.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, man.
Yeah, that game sure came out of nowhere. It seemed like that game just popped up all of a sudden. You know, it's just the biggest thing.
It's still EA's big money maker. I want to say sun up to sundown, the game brings in estimated something like $4 million a day. It's up around the 4 to 6 billion. I don't know how much it's made anymore.
Wow.
And
takes me a month to make that.
You know, yeah, if we were lucky. You know?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Yeah,
I had no idea.
The gaming industry is just something else.
I think what it is, you know, you have your microtransactions and it's all ones and zeros. You know, if I want to buy a skin for my character, I'm given EA $4 and I get to have, there's nothing gets delivered to me. It just appears on my screen.
$4 is optimistic thinking.
Yeah, right. You know,
more like 20.
Yeah.
Wow.
Skins are usually a good 20 piece.
Yeah.
15, 20.
Wow.
And so it's, that world, the mind boggles at that world.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does. You know, and when that was first coming out years and years ago, you know, the industry itself was blossoming, and we all had everybody in SAG-AFTRA got together, and I remember we went down and had a meeting. Well, what do you want to do about this? So I mean, what blah 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 blah, and I just said all I wanted to do, and of course now everybody's in their own category, so they can negotiate per that character for that. So you've got that, but just in general, I mean, like people who are, you know, crowd people, you know, extras, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think, you know, take the same template that we did with video cassettes and put it over onto that, and because this is gonna see, no technology comes out and then fades away and goes away. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at radio, look at TV, look at anything, look at the things we're talking about, and they just. No, they wouldn't do it. They didn't want to go on strike. I go, just go on strike right now. We'll do it for 3 months. Then they'll say, all right, we'll give you X amount of, you know.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think it's and back to that point of it mind-boggling in terms of the numbers.
Yeah.
The union sort of system wasn't able to keep pace with animation and film and TV in terms of residuals, in terms of, you know, protections for even stunt actors, and that's why you know, we're striking at the moment. I think the horse is probably already bolted, or there's just a lot of time and energy and just time really. You know, this is a young contract. The video game, the IMA, it's a young contract.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the interactive media agreement, which is the agreement that all video game actors are under, doesn't include residuals like the animation agreement, the other one, and it never has, and so it doesn't. And also the sort of mechanics of games have changed. Used to be you'd go into you know, EB Games or whatever it was, and you would buy the physical copy of the game, and so all of the contract language is tied up with how many copies of the game get sold. That game gets sold, but now that everything's sort of happening online and you can download a game, ostensibly you can come out with the cousin to the game, and it's sort of still underneath that same sort of banner, and so the number of copies sold sort of gets pulled into different silos, and so there are no bonuses that get paid out to the actors that get involved in the project. So, it's you know, I think the games that I've been part of have turned over roughly $20 billion in the last 5 years. If I'd have been in, that's 10 Avatar films. If I'd have been in 10 Avatar films, you know, I'd be living in a different situation.
Yeah, boy.
And that's saying something. So, you know, I think there are people in the industry like actors and producers and writers who are starting to like negotiate pieces of the pie, and I think that's brilliant. You know, I think the union is going to do what they can to turn that, but right now what they're battling against is AI, and you know, not to be cynical about it, but it does seem a little convenient that we're talking large about AI when personally I don't think it's going to make a huge difference in the long term. Certainly in the short term. It's I think the union could be negotiating for a whole lot more than what it is right now, because but having said that, it's not a big pool of actors that they have to negotiate against the big studios with. It's just not. So, you know, there's no A-list actors coming out and saying, well, I'm not going to release your tentpole film next year unless you come to the party with the unions negotiators. So good luck to the unions. You know, I'm a unionist. I'm right behind them, but we'll see what we see.
What's your, since we're talking about video games, what's your take on, they just announced the games for the best game of the year at the Game Awards, and one of the games is a DLC. What do you think of that? Should a DLC be eligible to be Game of the Year?
I mean, I was in the God of War DLC, so yes on that side. But no, you know, I played Tyr on God of War. Tyr's Valhalla was the DLC, but
so then you're the perfect person.
I'm the perfect person to ask. Hell yeah, give me my award. No, you know, I just want to see Chris give another 9-minute speech. No, I think I love that he's in, you know, your dad's in the Guinness Book of Records, right? You know
Is
that?
he in it again?
He's in the Guinness Book of Records
for the longest
acceptance speech
of
any award. So,
I did not know that.
And Al Pacino has the bruises to prove
it. I was there that night, Alistair, just to take an aside, Alistair Duncan, who plays Mimir, and I were sitting next to each other. And at one point, you know, Alistair, famous Scott, turns to me at one point. He's like, Chris, he's going on a bit. You know, he really has to stop. And I was like, no, man, let him keep going. And we're like, we should just keep going. And, you know, it was fantastic. I think because his speech was so early in the night, no one had cued the playoff music. And he was like, how are you going to give me a lectern? I'm going to preach.
That was so fun. Right. I was watching that. I was watching Ninja live stream the Game Awards.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And Ninja was losing his mind. He's like, he thinks he won an Oscar. He thinks he won an Oscar. He's like jumping up and down on his chair, man. I was cracking up.
It's a good question, though. Should it be nominated? Hey. I think in the film world, if you had like a Marvel film that came out and it's like obliquely related, even to say it was Spider-Man and then it's like Into the Spider-Verse comes out and then there was a second Spider-Man film, those things are related. All I would say is there is still a ton of work that goes into those DLCs. It is still a year or 2 years of work. And so to recognize that crew, that team, which is sometimes a different team, I think it's valid. You know, if the kids are out there playing the game and we love the game and it has a narrative that we have found meaning in, because they are the ones who are going to vote.
Yeah.
So certainly nominate it. It might not win, or maybe it will win.
Yeah.
But you know, it's what I would say is, but then, you know, games take different forms. Something like an ongoing game, like a Valorant or an Apex Legends or Fortnite. You know, that's a going concern. It's those things, or Minecraft, Roblox, they dwarf all the other games. So they kind of probably have their own category. Maybe DLCs need their own category, or maybe just let them compete.
Fair.
Let it sort it out.
Yeah, let them duke it out.
The market will figure it out.
Yeah. And you know, I don't know what happens.
I'll play devil's advocate. I'll play devil's advocate. So do you remember?
That's a good game.
Do you remember Who Framed Roger Rabbit? You remember that movie?
The movie, yeah.
Do you remember there was like a little animated short in the beginning, and it was this baby.
Oh,
and the baby was like the baby was crawling all around.
How you doing?
Roger was trying to keep the baby safe, and like knives were all falling and all around.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really. It had nothing to do with the movie.
Yeah.
So what if that movie had won Best Picture, but for that short?
Like best short?
No, just like Best Picture, but it gets nominated because that's a part of that movie.
Look, I think what it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Yeah.
I mean, but can a 10-minute short film really compete against a 90-minute masterpiece?
Isn't that the argument? Can a DLC really compete with a full game?
So we'll come with you on that one. So if a DLC takes the place of another, like if that took the place of another feature film at that time, then sure, kick it out. So see how easily I flip-flop? Like I think it's contextual.
Got it covered.
Like, if you're just going to like add it. Like I remember years ago, I was up for an acting award years and years ago. And I was up against this guy who had, it was my acting performance for this one play against his body of work.
What?
Right. And I was like, this guy is as good, if not,
that's not fair,
a better actor than me. Right. But here's the thing. I won that award and he didn't. And I went up to him afterwards, was like, dude, this is a tragedy. Like, there's no way. And I'm like, it was kind of like, it wasn't a huge award. Don't worry about it. But like, it was a kick in the teeth to that actor.
Yeah.
So I do think as a broader like comment on awards and like on like us like letting art compete, because I do think video games are an art in a sense, but letting them compete and then like having some arbitrary like, that's the best film. I'm like, come on now. Like, you know, it's, I never like competing actors or competing films or competing songs, you know. I find it a little distasteful.
It's weird, yeah.
Yeah,
it's uncomfortable.
Would I accept the Oscar if it was? Of course I would. Like I can't accept this Oscar. Like I'm not
turn it
about
down?
this.
There's been a few Oscar rejections over the years.
Yeah, it was with Brando.
Marlon Brando.
That's
the only one I could think of.
I forget
Was
her
that
name.
that was for the Native American girl?
Yeah. And they booed at the time, you know.
They booed.
John
They
Wayne
booed
was,
big
John Wayne
time.
was famously like
time.
going to storm the stage.
Missouri Breaks. What was the movie?
Might have been Godfather.
Yeah. Early. Yeah. Well, it was pretty good.
Yeah. And then there's been those Oscars that like, you know, go to the wrong person. Like Moonlight. And,
that was wild.
Yeah.
That was wild, that La La Land one.
Yeah. Who read that out? I forget. Someone who read it out and they were just like,
Who
off with
did
the
read that
fairies.
out?
That was painful.
Yeah.
I wanted to say Steve Harvey, but that was for the Miss America.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was some geezer.
Send your letters in, folks.
Yeah.
Call in right now.
Give us the answer.
Call in now, won't you?
Give us the answer in the comments. Why don't you?
That's right. So what's on the docket nowadays? What's
nowadays, you know, look, I'm steadfast on this strike, so I'm not working. In video games, you know, we went out, we did Wolfman at the start of this year down in New Zealand, like traveling, like
that's
in
cool.
Wellington, and
It's
then
in
down
New Zealand,
a beautiful part of the world. Oh my god! And so auditioning for film and TV stuff. Interior Chinatown, that was Taika Waititi's thing that just came out, a little small bit in that. That's on Hulu. And me and my team, we're just out there. We're just out there looking for stuff to do. I'm writing a feature at the moment based on, it's almost like a social sci-fi commentary based in Yahuts, which is a Pacific Northwest little coastal town.
okay? Yeah.
Well, if there's any early 30s male characters, I'm your guy.
That's right.
Hey, you say that. But yeah, it's a really interesting piece. I'm just getting to the end of the first draft on that. So that's something that we're looking at. And otherwise, I work at a gym at a place called Training Mate. Shout out to my training mates. So I'm as a on the side.
Keeping in shape.
Yeah, like I'm taking classes, you know, taking 20, 30 people around a gym, you know, 2-3 times a week. That's keeping me sane right
that's
now.
pretty
to be
good.
honest.
Yeah. You
Good for
look
you.
fit.
Thanks, man. You know, like we played golf the other day, and it was. Although we only got to play like 16 holes or something, it got dark.
Yeah.
Like, what were we thinking there? It was getting dark, but
If that group in front of us wasn't so slow.
I know. I know, right?
It happens.
But this man can hit the ball a mile,
I'll bet. Yeah.
a mile.
Yeah,
And-
just got to keep it in bounds.
Yeah, I can say you hit it. Yeah. He can hit it a mile. I'm not saying which direction. But, so that's what's keeping me busy. I got my family. We're heading back to Australia in February, so we're going to get out there and there's a couple of things on down there. And in the meantime, you know,
Do you do the convention circuit?
Yeah, sometimes I'll head out to Supernova. A shout out to those guys.
I've been there.
Shout out to Daniel. Daniel's a great guy.
that's
Zachariah, and that crew.
He's a good guy.
He is. You had a guest on here who I went out to Supernova with last time. Temura Morrison.
He's great.
Yeah.
Fett.
That's where we met him.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
At Supernova?
At Supernova.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I was out there with him last year. Love Tem.
Yeah,
that
great guy.
He works those conventions hard.
He sure
that
does.
Boba Fett.
Yeah.
I remember the funny story real quick about Tem is he has the busiest line, one of the busiest lines out there. And he's signed on that Boba Fett helmets. But on his posters, he signs his full name. It's the full name. It's from the T. It's every letter. You know, me, I have a couple of scrolls, a little love heart sometimes. He has the full name. I remember I turned and looked at him. It was like 7 p.m., still a line long. And Tem's just there, like, shaking it out. Like, he just can't sign his name one more time. I'm like, all right, that guy's got some wrist stamina.
Yeah.
For signing his name.
Yeah.
Lovely guy.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tem. Love you, mate.
Yeah. Well, good for them.
Yeah, Tim's a great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get a lot of people who they want recordings.
Yeah, I bet you do.
I know that's, and after about the 1800th of, you know, it gets a little, oh, stay sweet as honey. Oh, yeah, you know, it's kind of like, oh, don't forget, keep on bouncing, yeah.
I thought of you recently, Jim, because we were at Disneyland and we met Winnie the Pooh, but they're not allowed to say anything. They're allowed to sign things. They're not allowed to say anything. And I was like, yeah, we just need Jim on a speaker there.
Yeah, it's fun. We'll go there occasionally, and apparently they get a kick. Well, they recognize me. You know, they're in a costume, Pooh and Tigger, and they go,
Yeah, they go nuts. They go nuts.
So
I go,
It's hilarious watching D23 was just like a month ago.
Yeah.
A couple months ago, and watching, because everybody knows Jim and D23.
Yeah.
And literally, like, Jim will be walking through and you just see people like turning and like it's like a chain reaction. Like you just see people all over the place. Like, oh my God. Like, and then
like
they
a
come
ripple.
running up and ask for a picture. Then other people are like, oh, I can ask for a picture too.
Yeah. Next thing you know,
Running
you
up.
can't move.
That's what I love about those conventions. I only had a small taste of that again when Apex was at its peak. And this woman walks over with, the pram. She had the kid in the pram and had the 8-year-old kid next to her. And she's like, it was in Australia. She's like, oh, g'day, Ben. I just want, could you just, give Plugger a little cuddle, right? I wanted a little hug, right, for Plugger. And I'm looking at this 8-year-old kid and I'm like, okay, well, you're a little young to be playing Apex. And I'm like, come here, kid. And she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, you wanted me to give Plugger a cuddle. And she's like, no, he's over there. And you look over there and this is no word of a lie. Standing 20, 30 feet away was her husband, the 6'4", fully bearded like Plugger who comes over and he's like, oh, g'day, mate. Yeah, look, I'm a huge fan of yours. Would you give it? And so I gave him a big, I had to reach up to cuddle Plugger, give Plugger the big cuddle. He's shaking. I'm like, why am I making these grown men nervous?
Yes.
Shout out to Plugger.
Yeah, there you go.
Big shout out, Plugger.
She's like, he wouldn't come over.
This podcast is for you, Plug.
This is for you, Plugger. Cheers,
May I
mate.
call you Plug?
Mr. Plug.
Mr. Plug.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Well,
Mr.
thanks.
Plug was my father.
That's right. Well, thanks for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a lot of fun.
Chris. Yeah, absolute pleasure to be here. Great.
Ladies
Best
and
of luck. Love the
gentlemen.
podcast. Keep it going.
Yeah, so far so good.
Yeah.
Well, you're making it, keeping it going.
Yeah.
You're doing it. So.
Yeah,
Thank
we got
you.
a whole bunch to come out. So that's the next job is for you folks out there.
Yeah.
That's
you
right.
guys got to like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Tons of content coming out every Monday, new episodes every Monday, and even more content if you're subscribed on Patreon. So don't forget to check us out there. And as always, you can find this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. We do appreciate you guys all on YouTube. YouTube is a really good
mainstay.
place for us right now.
Yes, it is.
It's been really good. We appreciate you. We appreciate YouTube. And we'll see you all in the next one.
We'll plant you now and dig you later.
See ya.
Thank you.